Hello and welcome back to the TIO Show. Again, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that the content has been useful and that you're able to apply it in your everyday life, and that the insight that's given here has made some kind of difference or impact. And that's the reason why I do this, is for others, so that way we can go ahead and share our contribution of our experiences, our wisdom on a bigger scale. Um, and I want to say thank you for everybody tuning in, for your support, sharing it, and constantly, giving feedback and stuff. So, again, thank you. I hope that the tools last week helped. We're going to be having a landing page coming out pretty soon. You can also find this on iTunes under KP Media. And when you search that, you'll see the TIO show. But so if you're not able to always hear it during the hour, you can always do a replay of it through the podcast on iTunes. And I will have that information for you also in the future. And once things have been more established with the landing page and stuff. But today, what I actually want to discuss is business intuition, and how I feel that a lot of businesses in the future will be going towards that. Whether we realize it or not, a lot of us use our intuition to make certain key decisions. And I feel that in the future, business is also going to go that route, that we're going to really grow that muscle of our intuition and making decisions of going within, so that way we're able to provide something that, may be different or unique, or a different way of seeing business. And I went back into my career, and I realized that I didn't even see that I was making a lot of decisions based upon my intuition. Yet I use other things to classify as to why I would make those decisions. But when I really go back and analyze those decision makings that I have, especially if you're a quick decision maker, like you don't need a lot of data, you just take a couple of the information and then make a decision, yes or no. You're really using your intuition of your past wisdom or your past experiences to make that decision, versus some people who may be more analytical or need more of the data aren't necessarily using their intuition. And I believe you need both. I believe that especially with a person who is like, following their business intuition, that they need other people on the team to not only align with seeing business in that sense, but also being on the same page of it, and being a believer that that is, a way that business can be ran. Now, obviously, you don't just apply the intuition and not look at other critical things, and try to implement both together. So I've really tried to adapt many different ways of trying it just with a business intuition, and trying it with business intuition and logic, just trying it with just pure logic. And what I've come to see is that, business intuition is huge, because that's guiding you in a lot of different paths and ways. But if you don't have the people on your team who believe in that, or align with that, or maybe think that, um, that theory doesn't work, it can actually also be detrimental to the business, because there's certain thought processes that have to go into place for you to be able to work and operate in that way. Now, the business intuition is, one step of it. But then what I've also realized is that you need to actually break out the plan and have it more concrete and precise. So that way you're able to see these things come to fruition. So that's why you need other people on your team who are the right mindset, who align with you, and who understand how decision making is going to be done, but that you also have other data to like back it up. And sometimes you may not have the data to back it up, but you have some kind of theory of analysis that you've done to make these certain decisions. And sometimes I've questioned myself, like in the last couple of years, if business intuition is really the way. And because coming from a completely logical base that I thought I was coming from, it seems like a very far concept, because for me at first, it seemed like I was going on two different worlds. Like it didn't apply to me in the way that I see it today. So it took a while for me to really apply it, see it, but I still needed logical numbers, data, and that's actually what had me drive the numbers more or drive the decision making more towards business intuition. Because for myself, just like any business owner, you have to be able to see the results and be able to see the results to quantify that yes, these decision makings does make sense. And so I realized that a lot of the times that even though I may have thought it was logical based, that I wasn't able to articulate some of the quick business decision making ideas that I had, but I knew I needed to do them. And if you have a partnership or you have other people on your executive team and you don't know how to articulate it, or there's not a certain level of, maybe I would say, trust, or a certain level of the same mindset, it actually can backfire, because then it seems like that you're not actually in alignment and you're not on the same page of where you see business and the direction of things going. So I want to say that that's really critical for people when they're looking at partnerships, or when they're looking at the executive team that they're looking to make these major decisions in their firm, in their company, that they need to be on the same page in the alignment of it. And really put some other tests of theories to make sure that are they really just saying yes because it sounds good but they don't believe it, or do they really fundamentally believe it? A good way to actually find that out is to ask a lot of open-ended questions. A lot of the times, before I see that is somebody going to be alignment to do business with, I really try to get to know them a lot more. I get to know what they're like as a person, how they are on their day to day, what drives them, how do they, deal with different situations, what protocols do they put into place, why was it that they chose this business, and kind of get a little bit of background of, if they had entrepreneurship in their family, or, what were the dialogues that were happening. And if the, entrepreneurship was a family led business or if it was an individual business. I think that was the main fundamental shocker for me, is seeing what my world was growing up. I always thought, like most people, when you have a business, it becomes a family business, that you just do what it takes. If you need to step in, you step in. You don't think of it as a separate entity of like, okay, that's your business versus like, this is my responsibility, or whatever it could be. But I realize that has a lot to do with cultural differences, that it has a lot to do with upbringing, it has a lot to do with um, a lot of different processes of how we see the world or how we see business. So I know for myself that before, all the entrepreneurs that I hung around, especially the people that were in our circle, everybody was in the family business. Even kids, when you're in small and you're in school and stuff, like, you just understand it's a knowing that you're going to be part of this business of helping out, even if it's something small like sweeping up or answering phone calls. I was actually very fortunate to have a passion for business at a young age, and I didn't even realize it, but I was always there looking and observing different things of my dad's business, and being in the day-to-day operations of things, or hearing different conversations and asking key questions. And that actually didn't come up for me until this past weekend, when my daughter was asking me a lot of direct questions of compensation, of how things worked, of why I was making certain business decisions, why I would, want to look at certain target market areas, and what was my thought process for that, which was actually kind of nice, because, my daughter's 10 years old, and I'm seeing that, depending on where people are at, or how their environment is, that some of them, they just gravitate towards that. And that's always something that my daughter's done. She's gravitated towards finding out more about the day-to-day things of like staff, or why certain people may be better than certain, not better, I would say, like, why certain job descriptions were fit for certain people, and what was the theory behind it. And what would I do if, like, they weren't feeling fulfilling that task? There's a lot of people who don't even ask that, currently on business. So to hear it from a 10-year-old's perspective, I had to ask her, well, what makes you ask these questions? Like, why is it that you are asking me this, just so I can understand where your thought process is? Again, always asking open ended. Why? Because I'm being curious. I'm being curious as to, like, where's my daughter's mindset? Where's my partner's mindset? Where's the mindset of the person that maybe, I can look into the future of having a business with, or seeing about expanding a partnership or a relationship with. So that's really important, and I feel that the way that you get to know that is to really find out more in depth about people, because people represent the business. People are the business. Whether you're an entrepreneur soul or you're, a big corporation, at the end of the day, whoever's in the front line is going to be the expression of the business, and your brand is at stake. So if your employees or the people on board, or your management team, your partners, or your executive team, whoever it is not necessarily in alignment with the vision, with where things are going, or what you have to say, that it's not going to work. And I've experienced that firsthand. You can have a lot of resistance, and that resistance will keep you from expanding. That resistance will, also create a culture within your own environment of your business that would be toxic and, sabotaging. And one would think, why would somebody sabotage their own business when they have a end goal of monetary reasons, or whatever the reasons could be? Most people, what I've realized, is don't even realize what their behavior is doing, and how sometimes our shadow selves, which is, we have two versions of ourselves, like the shadow self, which, I learned recently, I'd say in the last 5 years, because I really went more in depth to see about how to build the right team, how to expand business, how to take your business from one level to, 10x it, or like to quadruple the numbers. Like, were you going to have the right team? And what I realized is sometimes people have their dark self, their dark shadow self that can come up, that they don't even realize is there to sabotage not only themselves, but can sabotage a lot of the business that you're trying to build. And when I realized that, it was mind boggling to me, because I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize that that dark, aspect of people's, like, version of themselves can impact a business. At first, I thought it was kind of like, you know, did it make sense to me? Like, I wanted to see the data, and that's how I am personally. Doesn't matter what I'm exploring or doing. It's like I need to see enough of the tangible data for me to be able to make certain decisions and say, you know what, yes, that theory is correct. So everything that I say is coming from past data that I've, done an analysis of many different times, many different ways, many different, people, situations, and events, that, and saw that, okay, it's still the same end result. So when I experienced that, there's so many personality exams or different exams that you could do for your staff, or you could do for your partners in the business or executive team. And when I realized that there was something missing, like all the other things that I was doing, and, like, the parameters of how I was looking at seeing different people's positions and their potentials and stuff, there was like a key element that I was searching for that I felt was not there. And that's when I discovered there's a dark shadow self that happens with people's behaviors that they just do naturally. And it's not something that's ill intent. I don't even think half of the time people even realize what they're doing. Same with personal relationships, they don't realize it. So, but that's why it's really, really important that, anytime you have a business, and even if you're, not at the front line levels, or if you're not at the ground level, that you actually step into it and, get enough data and analysis to kind of see, like a check-in, like a verify and check, to see what is actually the conversations that are happening in the business, between the employees, about maybe the executive team, about, the management team, about the president, the CEO, whoever it could be, because those conversations, good or bad, can help elevate the company, or it can help, you know, stop a lot of growth. So once I realized that, I actually went to work within my own practice and really started seeing what the dialogue was that people were having of conversations. I did it myself. Most people, would hire a third party firm or a company, and I had that as well too. But I actually wanted to also still verify and check and see whatever the data that I was getting from different people in different positions, was that data correct? And were the conversations that I was hearing about certain, positions that were created, or certain roles that were created, was that, you know, something that was actually needed? What was the dialogue about amongst other people when those different positions were being created? Now, one would say, well, why would you go that in depth? Because at the end of the day, you're the owner, you're the executive, you should be making those decisions. Because you want to see, at the end of the day, we're all human. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what kind of money you have. Um, we're human. And so a lot of the times, different emotions can get up. And, a lot of businesses, which to me has been shocking to see, are not driven on business fundamentals, but driven a lot on emotional base. I think traveling overseas and seeing different countries and being blessed to be able to have that opportunity, I realized that that was actually more happening a lot more than I really thought it was. And to run a business on pure emotions without, the data analysis, or, looking at the fundamentals, for me was quite shocking. However, that's also done on the front line of business, of what is happening in the inner dynamics of the team that you have. Or you could bring one person on the team and the current team completely shifts. I remember when that happened, that I wanted to see about bringing somebody on the team that was different than everybody else that I currently have. Most of the people on my team that I had in the past, at one of my businesses, was coming from a referral base. Like, the existing employees referred within their circle of people, different employees. So that made it easier, because I didn't have to go out and go search people. But then I also wanted to see an experiment, and I guess I'm realizing over time how much I love, like, different experiments of things, so I can, like, really see the data and analysis for myself. And so one time I said, you know what, I want to try to see about bringing somebody outside of that inner circle, and what would the dynamics look like, to bring somebody completely different, that in my opinion was a whole different mindset than the current people had. And I realized that a lot of the people's insecurities or darker selves, or the way that they saw that person coming in, even though that they didn't have an experience, or that they were coming in, like you'd say, lower on the totem pole, or coming in as entry level, that it actually was shifting the environment, but not in a positive way. Until I got to see that, what were the concerns, or what was it that they were feeling that I wasn't able to pick up on. Because for myself, I felt it was like a no-brainer. Great business decision, probably one of the best employees that I've ever had. And, seeing how the day-to-day people viewed it versus how I viewed it, it was pretty insightful to see the two different variances, that how they viewed it and what it did actually to the business dynamics. So it's really crucial to find these things out. I know some firms, have their executive team meet, a future new hire, just to, be on the same page, to make sure that whoever that they're bringing in is somebody that would resonate with the current team. Or, maybe they do want to, like, change it up and see, like, if they did bring somebody who was completely different, would it elevate the current team that they already have, or would they see it as a threat? And how would they interact with this person? Would they be willing to, come from a place of being client centric, or what the goals of the business were? Or would they go ahead and get so triggered about, maybe that this person could be seen as, like, somebody to compete with, and act a certain way. For me, I've been blessed to be, I guess, you know, in business for so long at such a young age that I've had like a strong sense of business. So I've never seen somebody as like, compete. And so looking at that and hearing that from the different employees, and they don't say that. That's the interesting part too, is like there's a lot of different conversations that people say that you have to really like sit down and hear what they're really saying. And sometimes, you could be completely off, and then I'd have to get some other data analysis like surveys or other questionnaires that I would go back and see if my intuition or my what the analysis that I was seeing was actually correct. And when I was able to do the employee reviews or go back to those surveys and data, I was able to have tangible data that was there to bring to them and not just say it was like my intuition. So that's another part, is that even though a lot of the business decision making skills that I've done has been onto intuition, I always knew that I had to be able to quantify it to somebody else who maybe didn't see that. And the more that you do that, the better that you're going to become really versed in like being able to see different things, and being able to suit the whole team to see things in a different way. Because at the end of the day, everybody's different on how they view stuff, on how they learn. But most people, if you give the data, you have the analysis, you have the numbers, and you have the hardcore facts, you're able to take all the emotion out. And for me, that's exactly what I did. I was able to go back and see, like, when different issues came up or different things that, were upsets, that I just, heard what the employees had to say at the time, listened to their point of views. I felt that I needed to acknowledge wherever they were at, because I felt that there was a lot of different insight that I could have gotten by hearing where their mind was, by hearing their emotions and feelings. And then what I went and did is I actually went back to the hardcore facts. I went back to just bottom line data, went back to emails, went back to client files, went back to like different conversations, and then I would go back and see what the history looked like of these emails, of these different conversations, and see where the gap was, see where the person in one perspective could have seen it as a certain way because the communication wasn't clear. That's when I realized, oh my gosh, it's like, there's so many different departments that, don't even within the same firm, don't even have the conversations about, what the same client experience could be or what the same end result could be, that it's almost like, double or triple the work, and it's really not cost efficient at all. That I realized that I had to train people on how to communicate to a different level. And for me, that was like shocking, because I'm like, why would I have to train them to communicate that way when they should understand that, like, in order for us to all win, in order for the company to strive better, like the more details and the clear and concise on the communication that they could be, and sharing it with like all the teams, the better it would be for all. And I realized that a lot of people like to be um, lone rangers, that they like to work on tasks themselves and they don't want to necessarily work on a team. And that's okay too, because I feel there's certain positions that you can have that you can do that. But at the end of the day, even that lone ranger, even that one position that is very much individual based, still has to report to people, still has to work in some kind of team environment, that they need to be able to articulate different things. So I had to really do a lot of different analysis of people that I were bringing on board to see what was their thought process about teams. Like, were they okay with having teams? Were they envisioned with the right way, like of where the company was going? Maybe the company could be a certain way right now, but what was their end goal of the vision later? And sometimes you can have the right people at the moment that you need them, but if you're an innovator, and I actually am an innovator, if you don't have the people who are good with change, or good with working on a team, or good with like being able to adapt, it it can be detrimental from both sides, because even from the client experience, excuse me, even from the employee experience, it can seem like very chaotic when somebody who's a innovator comes back and is sharing ideas that are may seem so like out there, that are so big, or goals that don't even seem obtainable, that it can actually hurt a lot of the culture. It can hurt like the results, and it can even happen with your executive team. So that's why it's really important for you to make sure that before you share any ideas of business, or where you're looking to go, or the growth of the company, or the numbers, and maybe the vision of the company, that you really get clear that the people that you're speaking this into existence with, even your executive team, or your management, or your partner, that they're in alignment with the mindset that you have. And to find like-minded people who have the same theory of the way you see things, the way you see the world, the way you see business, it makes it so much smoother. I think that I've you know didn't realize like how much that made a key difference, that I've also done it the other way, that like, what, I'm just going to make it work with whatever I'm dealt with, whoever the person is, that I'm going to actually shift the role according to whatever their strengths are. So I've done that part too. It's actually worked quite well up to a certain level, because what I've realized is that I could move, things around as much as I could. But then at the end of the day, the mindset or the fundamentals of where I saw things wasn't quite there. And, you know, that was frustrating for somebody like me, who's an innovator, who wants to see growth, who wants to be able to like constantly bring new ideas and things. And then I also had to be responsible as like, a leader myself, that, bringing premature conversations to the team that I didn't maybe articulate myself, or didn't think through to a different level, because that's not how I operate. I see an idea, I say yes, and then I figure out the details after that, and kind of like, okay, it's a no brainer. But people don't operate that way. So, getting clear with those people, and making sure that they're understand that they get where you're going, and having enough data to make sure that those are the right people. I've had to do a lot of different experiments to see, okay, that they may say that this is what they feel and think, but then how is the protocol of maybe different settings of working on team you know projects together? How are they doing as individual, and how are they doing as a team base, where maybe they're not going to be in the limelight and shine? Maybe they have to take a step back and be in a different position. For myself, I realized that because I'm so results driven, I didn't care whether I was frontline, whether I was behind the scenes. It didn't matter, because at the end of the day, I knew that me taking on different roles or different experiences, that I was going to be trained in something that was new, that I would never have insight of. So even something as small as like being behind the scenes and like doing work that I would not normally do, as or people would see a CEO do, I still did it, because I felt that, okay, I can have a different perspective of how I can see things. And then I would also be able to manage these people different, because maybe there are certain things that I can see from my level of not being on the ground floor, and being so not day to day in the business, that I would maybe miss certain things. And I've seen a lot of people not do that, and it costs them a lot in the long run. These are long run things that you got to put into place, because you got to be able to work on your business, and you got to be in the business, and you got to know the balance of having the two. And sometimes it's going to be when you're currently working on the business, and that's just what you need at the time. And then sometimes it's going to be like, no, you need to take a step back and work on the operations part, or whatever it is. And you have to have somebody who's going to be able to replace whatever your current position is, or your current role is, to make sure that nothing gets dropped through the cracks. For myself, what I actually ended up doing was looking at every single position within my existing firm, and that I sold actually, and like try to figure out each role and learn it myself, which was for my for me it was not an easy task because I'm used to a very different way of doing things. And so I really had to work on retraining my brain to see things different, to sit there and, do things that I thought were super draining or mundane or like that, I hated doing. But I knew that there was a long run goal in it, that the long run goal was something that I can now speak to these employees or to those different people at a different level because I did it myself. What I also discovered during that process is like that I was quickly seeing that is there a faster, more efficient way to do this? And a lot of the times, if you don't take those positions, that people will just do what the role is of whatever the way it was done before. And, for me, I was like, wow, that's crazy. If you have to spend all this time on the phone getting data that, you can get from like, the online in a quick second, why would you spend so much time on the phone waiting on hold? And, the results, the input that actually got from the staff was, well, that's how we did it. That's how we were trained. That's how we, do it. So we don't want to change that. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Because me personally, I've always been that person like, all right, if I can do it quicker, most efficient way and get out of here, even as a assistant or whatever role that I was in, I'm like, I'm going to do that. Why? Because my life's going to be easier. Then I can have more leisure time. But I didn't realize that people don't do that. So I feel that it's really key that if you step into these different roles, and maybe you don't have to do the task yourself, but just kind of observe it and see it, that you'll get so much insight. And, even that decision was based upon an intuition, business decision, because I was seeing that how I saw business was very different, but that was coming from, talking to the employees at like different events, like retreats and different things like that, where I was able to not only spend like, the 3 4 days with the whole staff, but I was able to see them in different settings of different places that I was constantly changing to see how they would be in certain environments and what they were like behind the office, like what were they like on their day to day. And that actually brought us all so much closer because they got to see me in a different light. They got to see me as, just another, human being as them. And, what I realized is when I did a lot of these retreats or, business, like, development or like team building things, that the team also grew, that they also started working together, that they didn't feel so threatened. And like, it was something that we started to do like at least twice a year. And I used to see and track the results of that, of okay, what is it that it's doing? Great, I did that event, but what are the fundamentals that I can say that investing in that particular event, what did it provide? Sometimes it's not going to be monetary, or sometimes it's not going to be something that you can gauge right away, but you have to have certain measures in place to kind of see what are those things that you're actually looking for to create in the environment of your organization, and how are you going to do that most in the most efficient way. Because a lot of times when we do conference calls, or we do remote things, or not like kind of bring the team together, we can get very much stuck into whatever our role is. So when I saw that the culture of the office was shifting, that people were getting stressed out, that people were not, really working in alignment together, I knew right away, okay, wait, you know what? I need to bring these people together, even if it's like a happy hour event, or, um, some kind of event, like maybe, bringing some kind of holiday event or a barbecue, that I needed to bring the team together and have them understand that like we're in this together for the common goal of what the company or the organization is doing. And over time it's actually started shifting a lot of different ways that like people really started to kind of work together. And anybody who's an entrepreneur wants a kid have a self-managing business. So that was also another way for me to have a self-managing business, because I felt that if I got the employees, or I got the staff, or I got the different people to understand the other departments upsets, the other department's thought process, or what their world was like, that the other people would see it from a different viewpoint. And it did shift, because a lot of the times when you're on the sales team of a company, you maybe see that, okay, I'm just sales and I'm not operations, so like I don't need to worry about those tasks. And that's true, because in order to drive results to a different level, sales, you have to be in a sales role. And doing operations a lot of the times, just kills what you can actually produce at the end of the day. And most salespeople are horrible operational people. But there's some that are, gifted to be able to have both. But then the operations people, maybe thought that the salespeople were sloppy in like their process, or didn't understand what it really took, or when there was different mistakes happening on the operational level, what could happen to the sales front, like what were the dialogues that the people on the sales front had to say, because that the operation people didn't see things from how the salesperson saw the client, or saw the transaction, or understood like what the dialogue was. So a lot of times, like a simple mistake or a simple thing, when you have to go back to a client to, you know, um, be able to like go back and say, Mr. Client, I need this another form, or I need this signature. There's, a certain level of objections that can come, and the operation person may just see it as like, well, this is just another form. Like, I don't get what the big deal is. So really, those retreats, those different environments of team building, those different inquiries of happening, I really got to see the mindset of each department that I had, and under making them understand how crucial all departments were. It's kind of like, a car that you have, and it's like you can't just have, one wheel that's going, all four wheels have to go for the car to go. So when they kind of saw that process and understanding beyond like the papers, or beyond like the numbers and stuff, and really understand the tangible behind it, and the client, and like the beginning process, the end process, the middle process, when objections happen, it really shifted everything. So getting back to what I'm saying, it's like a lot of these key things come from your business intuition, come from, gauging and seeing. And even for myself, like the clients that I was actually, blessed to be able to do business with, I didn't realize that a lot of the time I was actually being selective on some of the people that I wanted to work with, based upon my intuition, because I wanted to have certain I didn't want to have certain resistance, because I knew that would not help me elevate to the next level. I wanted to be able to have people that, not only were my clients, but that I could elevate myself. So I was, pretty strategic in that level, but I didn't realize it, because a lot of that was coming from just my business intuition. So, I want you to kind of see that, whatever business that you're in, or you're looking to be in, or maybe that you're an employee in, or that you're a team member in, that you're using your intuition a lot more than you think you are. And if you're not, to kind of gauge and see within, like, how can you make that business intuition muscle better? And over time, it'll come. And the more that you start going within, the more that you start practicing, certain things, you'll start to see that things come very clear to you, of certain insights that maybe you can't see before. So I felt that this was going to be a good segment to talk about today, because as we're planning our goals for 2021, maybe you didn't think about, how am I going to measure my business intuition muscle, or how can I put within my existing organization certain parameters that are going to help to expand business intuition for not just myself, but like the core executive leaders there. So again, thank you for joining in. Like I said, shortly we'll be having other offerings and different things with a landing page to be able to not just have these talks, but to be able to expand and, maybe even go one-on-one or go within businesses to be able to, customize it to wherever you're at. So thank you again, and I look forward to speaking to you all, getting your insight. Thank you so much for sharing, and till next Monday. Getting your insight. Thank you so much for sharing, and till next Monday.